Right. Of the last four presidents, two of them were not voted in by the people. They were instead placed in by the Electoral College. Think about that for a second. In the last 20 years, since the new millennium, half of our presidents have not won the popular vote. This seems like a concerning trend, or worse. Who knows what might happen in 10 years? The Electoral College may just put someone in if they desire to do so. So, what I say we do is either abolish the Electoral College or we move to direct representation or ranked voting system, either of those. And throughout my speech, I'll be citing several different people, so let's go ahead and give them a run. The first is George C. Edwards III. He is the professor of political science at Texas A&M. Next we have Alex Keesar. He is the professor of political science and history at Harvard Kennedy, and his book is Why Do We Still Have the Electoral College? I'll be referencing him several times. Everything comes from his book. Next we have Megan Brennan. She is a research consultant at Gallup. Afterwards we have Katie Collins, who is a PhD in international relations and a Washington Post contributor. And finally we have Mr. Bernie Sanders, as quoted by Rachel Frazin of The Hill. So, I would like to start at the beginning, because it seems like a lot of the time we're taught some revisionist history when we go to school. The fact of the matter is, while they may claim the Electoral College, which was conceived in 1787, was because the populace was uneducated or the communication would take too long for a direct representation vote across the states. But that's not really the reason. The fact of the matter is it's population. And population then was inherently linked to slavery, as unfortunate as that is. The northern states who had on paper more people, wanted direct representation. The southern states, of course, did not, as they would lose out a whole portion of their votes through the slaves if it went to a direct representation. So instead, what we eventually landed on is the Electoral College, which, according to George C. Edwards III, led us to the 3/5 Accord. The 3/5 Accord is, of course, for every slave you have, it's 3/5 of a vote to your master. This is all well widely known. But what's not so talked about is the 5/5 clause. So the 5/5 clause, according to Alex Keesar in his book, was from the 1890s and the 1968. The black population counted towards representation, but were not able to vote. So the South effectively had this whole voting pool of electoral votes that couldn't vote anything else, really. They had to go with it. And since then, it's not like the problems have gotten any better. So let's look at right now. 61%, according to Megan Brennan in the Gallup poll, 61% of Americans are in favor of abolishing the Electoral College. It's been higher than that, though. Sometimes it's in the 80s. We also have the fact, according to Katie Collins, that sparser states get an inordinate amount of power in the Electoral College now, which is true. For example, Wyoming. One vote in Wyoming is worth 3.5 votes in California. And you might say this is how it was intended, but let's look back when it was created. At that point, the largest voting gap was 1.5. So we have over doubled the disparity since then. And according to Alex Keesar again, there have been many times of trying to change this. Over 200 attempts this far. And I think that says something, right? Everyone is trying to change it, even if they're unsuccessful. And as Bernie Sanders said, as quoted by Rachel Frazin, it's hard to defend the president who lost the popular vote by 3 million votes. Now, So, what are alternatives and why would they be better? I'll do why it would be better first. Well, first, I believe every vote should be 1-to-1, which it isn't in this case with the Electoral College. As it stands, your vote may be worth more than my vote, or vice versa. I don't think that should be the case. The second is, for all the communication and uneducated issues originally brought up, that's no longer the case. We were now the most educated people we've been ever, and have been for the last 100 years. And aside from that, we have several alternatives here. So we have the NPVIC, which is the National Public Vote Interstate Compact, which would effectively, it has 19 states so far, and it gives you the Electoral College votes for the popular vote in that state. Next, we have ranked voting, which is much better than what we have right now. Ranked voting would instead allow you, say, you vote for second place in an election, right? And you think, oh, my vote goes to him. When in reality, all the votes go to the first place. In a ranked voting system, your vote would stand at second place. And then there's the less likely ability, a constitutional amendment. And as I said, they've been trying to do that for the last 200 years. So I don't know how feasible that is. But in the end, we should, all I'm saying is we should probably move away from the Electoral College, as it has so many issues currently. It obviously has a checkered past. I don't think there's anything positive about it. And I would like to end with a quote from founding father and co-author of the Constitution, James Wilson. And James said that, can we forget that we vote for man instead of imaginary states? And I believe we may have forgotten. Thank you.